welcome Jamison Boaz to Home is Where the Dark Is. Dude, it's been years since I've seen you, and I've been following what you've been up to on social media and, checking in from time to time to see like how your musical journey has been and everything else. But it's great to see you, man.
Dude, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And
Yeah.
This is my first time in the studio too. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Maybe share with us like some of your new and exciting projects you have going on right now, just so we can catch us up.
A lot of it's NDA stuff for video games, so I can't really talk too much about this stuff. But I just finished my second full video game soundtrack, which is also kind of a music project in itself that's starting. So that's something that might be taking up hopefully many years of my time as we kind of start rolling that stuff out. But also right now I've got a couple of my own music projects. I've kind of recently rebranded myself as sort of synthwave pop sort of artist. So I'm working on that project right now. There's new Epsilon Zero coming. There's new Residrone coming. So, and I have another project I haven't even announced yet that I'm working on at the same time. So there's a lot.
I remember one of your old demos. I believe you handed it to me. If I remember correctly, it was like maybe 10 years ago at least, probably longer, at Bar Sinister when I played with Dawn of Ashes, and you had your Modern Weapons demos, and you gave me one of those demos, and I still have it. But yeah, dude, I like that project is sick, like super heavy. Like I always really enjoy the aesthetic that you bring in the production of your stuff, and it's always super heavy and melodic. So yeah, it's cool to see that you're continuing with that, even though you've rebranded a little bit, but I still hear that in your stuff. So
that's good.
Yeah, man. So you have Modern Weapons, you have Epsilon Zero, and then what was the other one? How do you pronounce it?
Residrone.
Okay, cool. So you have three things going on, and then you have something else in the
Jamison Boaz, which is an interesting story, how that even happened in the first place.
Do tell.
So years back, I ended up doing some work. I do a lot of video game work from like many different capacities, from either music production or voice acting or just technical stuff. If I don't have a gig, I call up a couple of houses in Los Angeles, and they usually have like some editing or something. Don't quit your day job, folks. Yeah. But I ended up singing a song on the soundtrack for the game Guilty Gear Strive. It was a duet between myself and a Japanese pop artist named Aisha. And when that came out, we credited it as Jamison Boaz and not Epsilon Zero. So it populated an artist named Jamison Boaz on Spotify with one song that was, a split royalty for a video game. Yeah. And all of a sudden it had 100,000 monthly listeners. So I'm scratching my chin going, I need to release something under this artist.
Right.
But what is that? Because like I always thought Epsilon Zero is like the culmination of like my human experience in music form. What else is there? So I dyed my hair pink and I put on a wedding dress and I climbed to the top of a mountain, became a synthwave pop queen.
Love it.
And it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people really liked that project. Completely different vibe. It's fun. It's got a lot of energy, and it's just super poppy for no reason at all.
That's great to be able to, just have different musical outlets. Because I don't know about you, but like when you, from my experience, like when you're in like one genre for a very long time, it's not necessarily that it gets boring. It just feels like sometimes you're kind of constrained to certain bullet points of things that you have to hit in the sound. So then it's like I like crave other things. So I like crave like, I want to do an acoustic song or just almost anything else that like I'm into. So it's cool that you have, these different artist names that you can, have your musical outlets fulfilled in different genres. So that's pretty rad.
Well, you know how much fun it is to build like a wall of orchestra versus a wall of guitars versus a wall of like juicy analog synths.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like they're all completely different, and different genres of music lend themselves better. You're probably not going to go too far with a lot of metal with those big walls of synthesizers,
Yeah, it's difficult. I love all the things you just said. Like I love because I'm a big fan of walls of sound, and doesn't necessarily matter what the instrument is. I just like big guitars. That can be the only thing in the production. It could be orchestras, like you said. It could be walls of synths. Just that's a part of like what I love in industrial, like heavy hitting industrial music, you know, like an Author and Punisher, for example, like big fucking aggressive, droning, gnarly walls of sound. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. And orchestrals is just like, and what's fun about that is in each of these disciplines, like you have to treat the walls of sound almost completely differently because there's different frequencies and different textures. So you can't necessarily apply the same techniques to all of them, although there are similarities. But yeah, it's such a treat. You know what I mean? Just like diving into the different genres, you know?
Just cut 4K.
It's either between like 3.5 or like 4.5K. In guitars, I always end up notching that because no matter what, it's just like it sounds better without it.
Totally.
Yeah, always doing that. Okay, so how do you feel about the modern music industry and like with streaming and Spotify and how our royalties are paid out? Like, so how do you feel about it? I mean, a lot has changed in the past 10 years. Like I have my opinions, most people have their opinions, but I'm curious about like, do you embrace it? Are you opposed to it? Are you just kind of in the middle? Like, how do you feel about it?
I feel very much in the middle, because I do benefit a substantial amount when it comes to royalty payday, just because of all the stuff that I've worked on that's out in the world doing things, licensed stuff. I mean, the Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack, like, you know, those 3 songs that we wrote as Resodrone for that, you know, those are still out there doing a lot of work. So I feel good about being able to, you know, have a substantial amount of income from the music that's already finished.
Right.
But at the same time, it's peanuts. It's not even peanuts. It's just the shells, you know. The Spotify's .00, how many zeros? 0003?
Something
003?
terrible like that. Yeah.
It's a fraction of a penny. So I've had people, Epsilon Zero fans have asked me like, so I listened to your song. Do you get like a penny for that? And I'm like, man, I wish I got a penny for that.
I was just gonna say, even if we could at least get a penny, that would change it so much. That would bring it up, the royalties up so fucking much. That sounds so sad to say, but if we could at least get a fucking penny for a stream, that would make a huge difference.
Huge. Half a penny.
Yeah.
You know, I think we had 7 million streams on Resodrone the year that the soundtrack for Cyberpunk came out. That probably would have put me in a completely different situation.
I know, right? The difference of a penny. It's insane, right? But it's true. And
yeah. And it was famous. It was huge, you know, and it was still just like, okay, well, this is a nice, you know, payday, I suppose. But it's like, you know, what level do you have to reach before your life changes? And I think that's the question that a lot of people are asking is like, how do I, you know, have a 401k? How do I buy a property or a house or something? Like, how do I get to that next level in life? And I think a lot of people just feel like they're locked out of it permanently.
I definitely agree with that. I think most people feel that way. Musicians, especially in, you know, our metropolis cities like Los Angeles and New York, where it's like the cost of living is insane. So the thought of like ever purchasing a decent home is like almost non-existent, unless, like you said, you basically have to reach the, you know, the Billie Eilish level, or like that kind of attention, that kind of streaming, that kind of, and you know, the thing is like, unfortunately right now, I don't know if you can agree or disagree with me here, but music, I think at this point, the music isn't even the product. You know, it's like, it's about everything you have around it. Yeah, you're getting attention through your music, but you have to have something else to sell, because that's where the real like income is. Obviously the music is important and that's how we identify. But do you think we need to have other products? And that, I mean, I think that's how, you know, like a lot of these bigger artists, they get the brand deals, they get the you know, the endorsements and sponsorships and et cetera. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I think the real world stuff still works. I think people want to wear a cool t-shirt, you know, and you know, people can hinge their opinion about your entire brand based on like one song. And, you know, I think as long as you're still willing to put yourself out there and be like real about things and maybe give some, yeah, I'm definitely looking at physical merch right now, you know, so people can actually wear a t-shirt, you know, and getting out and playing shows too is still, you know, really important to do. I do think the rise of social media and the change of the mindset of the fan has really kind of affected the way that we do a lot of, you know, the things that we do moving forward. You know, kind of having to remind yourself, like, are you a musician or are you a YouTuber? You know, like what is it that you're really doing?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's difficult because, you know, I think I found myself doing podcasting, and I never in a million years thought I'd be doing this, but it's like come to the point where, okay, this YouTube is available. If I can just talk to individuals like yourself who are in the same industry, and I mainly do this because I like it and I like to learn, I like to talk to people, and I like to stay in touch, and I think it really does help the people that do listen. Like if someone can learn something from watching it, then that's what it's important to me.
Sure.
But I found myself like starting to do this stuff, and it's like I never in a million years thought I'd be doing it. And it's not that I don't want to be doing it, I just feel like I'm trying to adapt with the times the best I can. And of course I still do music. That's my main thing, and that's what I love. But this is just like me adapting, or, you know, and you say adapt or die. So it's a part of that. And I don't, and I mainly do it. It's like a labor of love. But what you said, I think what you did was brilliant. Like getting a placement in a video game, getting a song in something that huge is like majorly awesome. So congrats on that, by the way. Was that are you working with some kind of sync licensing publisher that like pitches your stuff, or did that fall in your lap? Like how did you attain that?
It fell in my lap through Jason Miller. He got the job. Mm-hmm. And you know, because I'm kind of more of the synth beats guy, you know, he called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to do this thing with me?" And I'm like, "Sure, I've heard of this game." You know, I remember like a trailer came out in like 2012, and this is like, what, 2017 or something that we're reading about. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that crazy trailer with like some cybernetic girl with like blades coming out of her arms and like a bullet like ricocheting off her cheek. I'm like, what the hell? So yeah, it was like asking me and, you know, Jason, formerly of Godhead, like, oh, we're doing like really dark industrial music. Okay, got it.
Hell yeah.
So it was pretty easy. It was pretty cut and dry, and we just kind of did stuff that we knew how to do. And you know, Jason came in and wrote the main hook that he would be singing, and then we kind of went back and forth with the vocal parts and stuff. And yeah, and then the game came out like years later, and there's like kids like sitting in the car in the game. Like they get in the car and the radio comes on, and one of our songs will come on, and they'll just sit in the car in the game and just listen to the whole song before they even get out of the car. And it's like, that's really cool.
That is.
So it, you know, but it's interesting because like working for a video game like that, especially with the kind of budgets that they often have, you know, you do not want to miss out on that gig. And it's not about, you know, like your artistry as much as it's about making sure that you're doing the job first.
Yeah.
But like when something actually comes through that's like, this is in my wheelhouse, it's a really, really good feeling. So you can just kind of do your thing. You send it off. You know, we sent some stuff to the record company and for the game devs, and they were just like, yep, green light, green light, green light. We wrote 4 songs. They didn't green light one of them. And I kind of agree with them, you know. And it's good to be able to be objective like that when you're working on these kind of things too, not to get married to all your ideas and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And from information I've gathered just from just listening to different artists that also work in video game music, you know, like one of my favorite composers is Mick Gordon. So like hearing some of his interviews about like the deliverables for just sending off to the studios, like how was that process for you? Like, did you have to do okay, here's a bunch of different versions, here's stems, like here's like, was there a lot involved with that, or did you just deliver the song like as an instrumental and the vocal, or how did that work?
Oh, we just sent a 2-track of the completed thing, and they were just like, yeah, cool.
Okay, so you didn't have to do a bunch of different versions and stems and all that.
No,
Oh,
like
okay.
I've been lucky to not have too many, game soundtrack jobs where I've had like a ton of notes on stuff. But then it's like, I'm friends with my friend Brett, who is known as Blue Stolly. Like, he's a freaking genius, dude. And he'll be like, man, I got so many notes. It's like, just depends on the client, really.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, some of these companies, like, they're very corporate people or executive types, and they're not really artists. And they're kind of just like suggesting changes to kind of like, do their job.
Right.
And it's like, okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, if you want to do it, then you've, like I said, don't be married to everything.
When you say you reach out looking for work, do you have like certain companies that you've developed a relationship with, or do you just kind of cold reach out to people, or what is like your daily, what's your like grind, like what's your process, if you don't mind sharing just a little bit of that?
Oh, just keep up.
Yeah.
Just keep up with everybody. Like, we're all just people trying to do stuff, and I think keeping that in mind, not to approach somebody in the middle of, like, if a dev's in a crunch or something, if they're working on a project, maybe now's not the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's lunches, dinners, little parties, get-togethers, that kind of stuff. A lot of the devs that I work with are actual friends of mine in real life, so we do have a rapport, and kind of just like through the processes, like the first game I worked on, I really didn't know what the process was going to be. So it was a lot of trial by fire, but like, so is everything, really,
Yeah.
I went to a recording school, and they can't prepare you for the kind of stuff that you have to do.
Absolutely not.
You just have to jump into it and just
Yeah.
like figure it out. If someone says, hey, I need like, I want to hear an oboe in here. And you're like, I don't know. What notes does an oboe play? You got to you got to go do the research. You have to find like a sample library that sounds good enough that someone's going to actually pay you for what you do with it.
Right.
So like the first game I did was like every genre of music. And that was the whole idea. They wanted like it was a fighting game, and every character has like a completely different music genre based around them.
That sounds so
like,
fun.
What? It was like 40 some tracks of like, okay, here's Arabian dubstep. Here's like good orchestral rock song, and some of it was like Castlevania stuff. Which, oh my god,
Hell yeah,
that is so fun to do that kind of stuff, man. Like Japanese prog metal with like just tons of like harpsichords and stuff.
Hell yeah.
But it was a huge process because I had to like do a lot of studying of styles of music, and I maybe only had a day or two to squeeze the track out to hit deadlines. So like one night I had to prepare for the track I was doing the next day, which was like a kind of a traditional Japanese like koto piece. And I watched like so much kabuki theater and all this other stuff, like to try to like watch like how the instruments are played, what kind of techniques they do, when do they bend the notes, when do they do all these different things. Learning shakuhachi techniques so that I could fake it.
What's that?
That's a Japanese flute. That's like that beautiful Japanese flute you hear in everything. Yeah.
So speaking of libraries, what are some of your favorites?
As well as I do, you have to have many, and sometimes you end up blending them.
Yeah.
But the ones like if I'm just sitting down and I just feel like playing around with something, or if I want to write something myself, depending on the loudness, I usually go for Audio Imperia stuff. Anything softer than 50% is going to end up going to like Nucleus. And of course that has woodwinds and everything in it, where Jaeger is just loud ass strings and brass, mostly. So you don't get a lot of like flutes and stuff, but it's so freaking loud. It's so fun. I think I used a lot of that on the Epsilon Zero God Machine EP and maybe some of Solar Flame. I don't think, maybe I didn't have a lot of orchestra on that, but I definitely used it later on, like God Machine, and used it a lot for video game stuff. I also really, really like Tokyo scoring strings, which is actually a real orchestra that was sampled in Japan. It's like the same orchestra that you would hear in like Final Fantasy games and movies, like Studio Ghibli games and stuff like that. But yeah, it has that distinctive, like kind of that Japanese kind of romantic sound to it. You can hit it a little harder, and it totally, like the first time I got it, I was kind of full velocitying the whole thing, and it was like this is Godzilla right now, you know, like the Godzilla theme song. It just has a different texture and a different feel to it. Whereas like, you know, the Jaeger and Nucleus are very, very polished and modern and big.
Yeah. I love the virtual instruments that some of them have more variation in the dynamics. So like you said, if you're hitting it like super softly, then you get that feel. But if you're hitting it like at, you know, 120 in velocity and it's like aggressive, but some of them, like the range, there's not a lot of range, and some of them there's like a shitload of range. So usually those ones with a lot of range, like the files are huge, but you know, it's the price to pay for that, you know, for that kind of variety. But
you need like a 4 terabyte SSD.
Oh God. Yeah. Just to have, I have a separate drive that just has all my virtual instruments on it, and I just feed off of that because it takes up so much space, and like to have it running separately than the drive that I'm using my DAW on, which is, I mean, I used to not do that, and then like the more virtual instruments I got, and it just started to get really buggy and slow. So I'm like, okay, I need to make the shift and move everything over, and it's kind of a pain. But once you get it set up, it's all good. What DAW do you prefer?
I'm a Cubase guy.
Nice.
Huge Cubase fan. I use Pro Tools a lot for just to be compatible with other studios. So much work comes in on Pro Tools files. And I don't know, Pro Tools feels like going to the dentist to me. But then Cubase, I'm like, I've changed all the colors. Everything's purple and pink. And it's more, you know, it's more flexible. And of course, like it has like better MIDI and scoring. And, you know, I've had to print out sheet music for, you know, clients in Japan. We did a bunch of work with singers and some classically trained string players on some of the game soundtracks that we just did. And so I'm sending them all the sheet music, you know, from here, and then like, you know, 8-9 o'clock our time, you know, it's like lunchtime in Japan, and they're getting together to actually perform it, you know, and we're doing like a Zoom meeting. I'm like kind of, you know, co-producing overseas. And yeah, it has more musical tools available to it, and I really like all the ways that it handles the software instruments and stuff like that. It just runs really well for me.
Nice. Yeah, I've been using Pro Tools pretty much my whole career, because it's just what I know, and I do a lot of editing and mixing, so it's great for that. It's nice for mastering too. But I really do I like Cubase. I like Reaper. I'm using Reaper right now for this, and I also like Logic too for MIDI and for writing and all that. It's a lot more streamlined. Pro Tools is, I mean, it's fine. I still do a majority of my work when I'm writing as well in Pro Tools, because it's just what I'm used to. But yeah, it's a little bit, it's not as intuitive when you're writing with MIDI and all that. So, but yeah, it's cool that you're in Cubase. And are there any other DAWs that you've experimented with besides Pro Tools that you liked, or that you just decided? I mean, obviously you want to stick with Cubase, but are there any other ones that give you that feeling?
Just like I have multiple sides to myself, where like one of me is a pop queen, and then the other one is a freaking, you know, cowboy. All my different sides and my musical sides and stuff. Like there's different sides of musicality that I really like to explore, and I think there's tools out there that are better for certain things. But definitely like my electronic music side, where I love like acid techno and stuff like that, and all the like, you know, more modern stuff. You know, I like FL Studio a lot.
Hell yeah.
People shit on it so much because it's like, we have to be like a rock and roll band mentality all the time. But I'm like, nah, I need like serum sometimes. I need to make stuff that's like really shiny and clean and work with clips and stuff instead. Ableton is the same way. Like, there's no winner. You know what I mean? There's no winner and there's no contest really. It's just, I've been trying to tell people all the time, like, it's whatever works for you, and sometimes it's about vibe.
Yeah, it's just personal preference, like with everything. But dude, Fruity Loops was like my first DAW. Like when I started, like that old school, like fucking old school Fruity Loops.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at it in like so long. But yeah, I loved it. And then I had fucking SoundForge, I believe it was, or like Audacity or some old shit. That was, I think that and Fruity Loops was what I like started with computer production with, and then from there discovered Pro Tools and like pretty much has stuck with that since. But yeah, it's cool that you like the Fruity Loops.
Oh, the Audacity.
I think Fruity Loops just gets a lot of hate, but I think it's awesome for that specific thing. It's so much fun.
I think just DJs get a lot of shit, and then people are like, what do they use? And they use like FL Studio, and they use Ableton, and they use Push and stuff like that. And it's like there's such a like you're either a hunk of wood guy or you're a box with pads all over it guy, and you can't be both. And I'm like, let me tell you something. You can do all of it.
You can. Yeah.
And that's God. I mean, that kind of segues us into like, yeah, that's how you survive. Like in the industry, if you want to be a musician for a living, unless you happen to be Billie Eilish and your brother is a genius producer and you're kind of set up, like I'm not saying that she didn't do a lot of really, really hard work. I mean, I love Billie Eilish. I love Phineas too. But they do have qualities that help kind of propel them forward. And, I mean, she's very attractive too. That helps. These are realities of the industry that like people don't want to admit sometimes, but like these are things that
everyone knows
true.
Everyone knows it, whether they want to admit it or not, or whether they like it. Like you notice all the like super popular artists right now, like fucking Sabrina Carpenter, young, gorgeous voice. Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande. I think all of these young pop stars, like, of course they're phenomenal, but the stars have aligned for them, and you know what I mean. Like everything has fallen into place, and I'm not saying like I'm sure they've all had their fair share of struggles, like everyone, but to get to that level, it's like it's so much more than talent. It's so much more than your drive. Like so many things have to go right for that to happen. But yeah, I agree with you. It's about just surviving. You have to go down roads that you never thought you'd have to go down to continue the dream. You know what I mean? So, so what kind of, let me ask you this question. This is kind of like the theme question of the podcast. Like what was one of your darkest points in your career, and what did you do to overcome that?
Definitely know the darkest point. I've had a lot of dark points, and if I didn't really truly love what I do, I would have quit. Like there's no way I'd still be doing this after some of the things that a life of music has brought into my life too. But if you really love it, man, just like it's never gonna leave, But there was a point in time where, and everyone's cool now. Like literally everything is like, forgiveness has been made and all that kind of stuff too. But I had a really bad breakup with the band, and there was an element of social media that was being used to tell people why I'm not a good guy. And I kind of just didn't really have too much of a choice but to just kind of sit there and just deal with it, and, for a couple of weeks, just having people sending me screenshots of things people were saying and stuff, and it put me in a really dark place, and I almost didn't come out of the other side of it by my own choice. But I hung on to like the couple of things I could hang on to, family, even pets, who's going to feed my cat? You know, that kind of stuff. And I just kind of kept pushing, you know, just doing whatever, not really like, I think at first maybe I was kind of driven by like a feeling of vengeance to say, oh, okay, well, let me show everybody, like, this is what I'm made of. And it was a selfish endeavor. And I don't think people responded to it, you know.
Meaning like meaning I'm gonna work really hard and be super successful. Just you wait type of a thing.
Yep.
Okay.
And you know what never happened?
Why do you say that?
It just there was never like a moment where it was like, oh wow, you did the thing.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I think you've done incredibly well. Just like you're able to still do what you love. You're still working. You got a killer placement. Like that's fucking amazing, dude. That's not a lot of people can, you know, not a lot of people have that. So, I mean, I see what you're saying. That's the difference in mentality for sure. I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm sure you're saying that because there's still more goals that you've always wanted to hit, right? I never
got the revenge.
You never felt it.
I never felt there was a moment where it was like I really stuck it to him. Like what ended up happening was just, you know, time passed and work became work, and work sustained life, and people changed and grew. And then, you know, we came back together and we talked about everything, and it was so much better than any darkness, you know, any shame or revenge or winning anything. It was just a good, it came into like just a good place. And I think everybody, you know, grew because of it. And I definitely did, you know, I spent almost my whole life catharsizing through music with some really, really dark stuff. Ever since I was really young, I was writing really, really dark stuff. And it was like, why? I'm like, you know, kid, you're like 16. Like, why? What the hell do you have to be so upset about? But, you know, as I get older, it's like, I just don't want to be like cathartic anymore. Like what I really want to do, the mentality was like, I need to show everybody how I feel. And the mentality now, especially like working on video games and doing music for a living, that forces you to do different things musically that maybe you wouldn't have done. Like, you know, learning a genre of music that maybe like back in the most gothest of goth days, I would have been like, I don't like that. That sucks. You know, and I was like, someone's going to pay you a whole bunch of money to do it. You're like, well, I better learn how to make it good and I have to make it legit, you know? So then these ideas of like artistry and like the selfish part of it really kind of goes away. And it's like the way that I look at music now is more like I love the world and I love people, and I want to make something that makes them feel good. And I, you know, not to say that I think my music is some gift, but I feel like I'm making a gift for people, and I'm just saying, here you go. Like, I hope you like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think that's a better mindset. It feels better when you're in the writing chair. I feel like you put more effort into the details because you care more about it. It's not just about you. And as a guy who's been solo for, you know, most of my writing, you know, it actually feels good to be like, you know, a more, you know, communal kind of a thing, you know, and it has a lot more to do with like, hey, what do you guys like? Like, how did you think about that? Like, and paying attention to what people maybe want to get next, you know, consider that like maybe, you know, giving people what they want sometimes is exactly what an artist should do, you know, and not just changing things underneath their feet for no reason.
Yeah, I totally see that perspective. And, you know, what you said about, you know, you want to create music that is a gift for the listeners. I totally agree with that. At the same time, I think you can create music that you love and you're not compromising on, and at the same time have a lot of people love it too. So it's like, you know, it's just always, you know, that's why I think the more songs you write, the better. The more you put out into the world, the better, because you never know what's gonna hit. Most of the time, it's a track you never thought you would never expect to hit that hits. Exactly.
The most.
Yeah, exactly.
That's been my thing my whole life, is like the song everybody liked the most was the one I didn't like.
I still get hit up by people that go, what happened to this song that I put out like over 15 years ago that I took off the internet because I don't know about you, but I have stuff that I've done in my early career that, not that I'm embarrassed by it, but I just can't resonate with it anymore. And I just don't want it out there, because I don't want, a big part of getting work is like, I feel like a lot of people that might hire you, sometimes they'll just like go through your whole discography. Yeah. And there's certain things like I don't want to represent anymore, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I feel like a lot of those songs, I still get hit up from people and they're like, what happened to that? It was so good. I'm like, I fucking hated it, but there's something in like the vulnerability of that I think that's why people like it so much, is because it was like, it's more pure and raw, you know what I mean? And
yeah. I mean, I keep a SoundCloud that I don't promote. I don't push it. There's hardly anybody on it, but I keep it specifically to house old basement tracks from like when I was in North Carolina, literally making industrial music in a freaking barn, There's a horse staring at me while I wrote my song. It was cool stuff. You'd use like whatever little thing you could get. You had $200 Roland JV 1010 from like the used section of a guitar store, and the guitar people don't know what the fuck it is, so they're just like $200, and I'm like, all right, cool, man, and then try to figure out how to use this like sound font rompler to make like Nine Inch Nails music, which is like samply, but it was like there were a lot of people, and we played it live too, and that's the big difference, is like we locally had like, we were headlining within like 4 months of forming, and we would have locally probably I think in the beginning, like our headlining shows would be maybe like 400 500 people. I think the last show was around 1,000. So there was a lot of people who really liked that older stuff that we actually would play live too. So they're asking me like, where is that stuff? And I'm like, oh, you mean that hateful ass broken hearted song where I'm angry because my girlfriend broke up with me or something? Here you go.
Exactly.
Go listen to it. And, I was like, it's so like, it's cringy to me now, and it's wall punchy, and it's like,
I feel exactly the same, dude.
Like,
I know exactly how you're feeling with that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like, when I realized that like, I could create vibes out of music that don't necessarily have anything to do with like, being like, heavy all the time, or you can make heavy music without being angry.
Yep.
That's a big one.
Yep.
I really, a lot of the bands I listen to have like more of like existential lyrics and are a little more thoughtful and mature and stuff like that, as opposed to like, the stuff I was pulling out from like Pantera when I was a teenager. I was like, yeah, that's how I want to be. No, you don't. It's not cute when you grow up.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it like, it's so interesting and like funny to see, some people never, I'm not saying that it's something you grow out, you need to grow out of, but some people stick with it their whole career. It's like they're pissed off, they're aggressive, they're talking about their exes, they're doing those type of songs. And some people, they do that, but then they grow out of it and they just start doing more deeper stuff, with more of a broad universal meaning that more people can relate to. But for me, I found that I grew out of that shit so fast. Like don't get me wrong, I love death metal. I love my Cannibal Corpse, but I can't write like that anymore. I used to be in bands where it was all like, it was just death metal lyrics. You know what I mean? It's like most people, it doesn't mean that's who you are and that's how you live your life. It's just a show. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like Cannibal Corpse, perfect example. It's like, it's fucking badass.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah. I mean, I love Cannibal Corpse, but I just can't relate. Like, what's cool about writing music for film and for TV and for video games is a lot of the time it's instrumental. So it doesn't really have to be about anything. It could just be a feeling, like you're putting a feeling to a picture. And that's what I really enjoy, is like, I really like instrumental music. So I've been working more on that kind of stuff and more orchestral and all that stuff, because it's just, it's so much more fun. It's a different type of outlet. It's a different type of creation. So
I want to touch on Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
Well, for a second, because I was just thinking about this. I was thinking about like branding. And just wanted to like kind of throw this out there. It's like one of the reasons Cannibal Corpse is like the biggest death metal band of all time is because they committed like from the beginning, and they still do.
Exactly.
Something about them can't stop doing what they're doing. And you know, and Corpse Grinder is such, like, you follow him on Instagram, like it's all just him going to Disneyland and Target. With his kids.
Yeah.
He's like the most wholesome, like cool dad of all time. And it's just like,
I love it.
You know, it's like, I love horror movies, you know, but I'm not going to go kill somebody. Yeah. You know, I don't ever want to hurt anybody, you know, but like something about watching like practical effects is just like, I don't know, like I love it. I love those dark stories and stuff. And that's what Cannibal Corpse is to me.
Hell yeah.
I've never listened to Cannibal Corpse and wanted to go beat somebody up, you know. There's other bands that I hear sometimes that I'm like, oh, that's your thing.
Right.
Yeah, therapy's awesome.
Yeah,
but maybe it is therapy for him, so I don't want to judge.
Sure.
You know, but as far as like, where are we going? Instrumental music. There is something really liberating about being someone who's like, I have to write songs. I've spent my whole life writing songs with lyrics, and then all of a sudden, like, you can just sit down and just make some cool music, and it doesn't have to do. You don't have to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I like to just sit down and just make little instrumental pieces sometimes because I want something that just I'm in a vibe. And like sometimes you're in a vibe and you listen to stuff. Every time I hear something I like musically, I want to go do it. And which is part of one of the reasons why, like, you know, I have such a like schizophrenic, you know, output, and like so much dichotomy in like what I do. I'm impossible to brand. I can't I can't figure out what to do with it, but it's really nice to be like, I don't have to write lyrics to this. I don't have to sing. I don't have to record vocals. I don't have to comp them. Don't have to edit them. I don't have to do anything. I can just, you know, make this really cool orchestral piece, or, you know, lay down a guitar riff, and then it lives on a hard drive, and you release it or you don't, you know. And if it's a job, then it's like you send it off, and you know, maybe you get a note or two, maybe you get a lot of notes, maybe they say it's not good, and then you do something else, and then they sign off on it, you know. And like that whole process is like really cool too, because like you have like a direct goal that you're trying to achieve. You're trying to make this one person or this group of people, you know, say this is what we want to represent, you know, the feeling of this part of the game or whatever. So it's a completely different mindset, and it's different. Like once you're finished making the thing, like what's it for? You know, what's it going to do now? Do I, you know, I don't have to put it on a record. You know, this thing doesn't have to be released under my name or anything like that at all. And it's just, instrumental music is a whole other mindset.
Yeah. And I love that, like what you said about, you know, I heard something really inspiring that has never struck me in that way before. So now I'm inspired. So I'm going to go create something with a similar vibe because I have the tools to do it at my disposal. So that's extremely powerful. And I like, just like being able to at any time, there's no rules. So you could just go write a piano piece. You could do a quick score. You could do a guitar, arpeggio, acoustic. Like you could do, if you have the skills and the talent and the ear to do it, I think just the more you do that, then I'm sure you have a huge library of stuff that you haven't ever released and no one's heard. So at any time, if you get a call or if you get a job and someone's like, oh, I need something like this, you can be like, I have that. Yeah. And you just go grab it, and maybe they'll want to use it. So I think it's important to, just keep writing songs, keep recording ideas. And it doesn't mean you wasted your time if you record something and you never use it. It's because at some point it will be of use, or it's just the practice of recording a lot and writing a lot is extremely valuable regardless if you release everything or not. You know?
Well, I think the key out of that is just keep doing it. Yeah. Like you should be doing it. There's not a day that goes by that I don't either sit at a 88 key controller with just a piano. Most of my stuff starts with a piano. Like I used to be like, oh, drum machine with distortion, and then like this synthesizer going wow, 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 whatever, you know. Now it's like, let's think about this top line. You know, let's actually think about what chords are going to represent this melody and like how it makes me feel and how it'll make other people feel. There's so much like so much of it, so much really great music is on purpose, even when it doesn't sound like it is, you know. But like, I just think there's not a day that goes by I don't pick up either. I sit at the piano, pick up a 12 string acoustic, because that's my favorite thing in the world right now. I got a really great little bit of help from LTD, from ESP and Takumi. So
Yes.
you know, they got me a really fucking cool like 12 string guitar, because I was doing like Diablo music for Blizzard.
Oh, hell yeah.
That original track is all 12 string. So I was like, I need a 12 string, and they made it happen for me. So
That's funny that
thanks,
you.
ESP.
It's funny that you mentioned Diablo and Blizzard, because I have one of my old buddies. He does post at Blizzard.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if you know. Do you know John Thomas? Does that ring a bell?
I don't,
Okay.
and I haven't really, like, I haven't been to Blizzard or
Okay.
like, you know, met a lot of people over there. I met some people at a party one time, you know, after we had a release, but yeah, I was mostly working with kind of the marketing team, because it was taking music from Diablo and then breaking it down into basically lo-fi hip hop.
What? Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
So it was, and it was just like, here's MP3s, you know, here's just 2-track MP3s. There's no, you know, and a lot of that music is very like, it's very dissonant. It is hard to hear what is exactly going on in dissonant music, yep. Especially orchestral dissonant music. Yeah. And there was only a couple of times I was able to request like MIDI or stems. Well, not that they wouldn't allow me to. I said that like they weren't allow me to, but there's a couple of times where I was like, I need to know what's happening here, because like maybe I couldn't tell exactly what a guitar note was. So they'd send me like a MIDI file or something just so I could see the exact notes and stuff like that. But it was really, really hard to do. But it was you know, it was really cool. People really liked it a lot. It was like that kind of lo-fi and chill, kind of study, relaxing music. And I've done like, God, we did like 6 or 7 episodes of that thing. It's like an 1.5 hour long video. I also did a lo-fi hip hop version of the first game soundtrack I did. They did that like after the game came out. They're like, all right, we're going to do a remix album. And I was like, super cool, you know, get to dive back into this music. And I ended up just kind of breaking it down to a lot of like clean jazzy guitars and pianos and, you know, all that Castlevania sound and like fight game music, anime stuff, like breaking it down into that kind of vibe, just coming home every day. And all the bass on that was real. So I was playing like fingerstyle smooth, you know, Fender Jazz Aerodyne, just chilling. Nice. I would come home every day and I would just like sit and chill, you know, and just make lo-fi music. And I did some traveling, and I was in Virginia, and it was raining outside, which, you know, we don't really get a lot of that here. And it's, it was beautiful. Everything was so green and gorgeous. And I was on the front porch with a dog, and I just had a recorder with me, like a Zoom field recorder, and recorded some rain and recorded like petting the dog. You hear the dog's collar, and ended up putting it like through the track.
I love doing that stuff.
So yeah. Chill, dude. It was like capturing a vibe like that. And I think the path down like making lo-fi hip hop, I'm not doing it on my own. I haven't made any lo-fi like by myself or by my own volition, but it was such a cool vibe. It's so nice to just like let music be like making music being relaxing, as opposed to, you know, like I was just, yeah. It was such a different thing. And it like really changed my mindset, like about what I do. And I was like, I can take any frustration or anxiety or whatever that I have, and instead of like living with it and then encapsulating it in this permanent thing that's now a part of my catalog forever, you know, I can actually sit down and attack, you know, a negative feeling or a bad day with creating something that's completely the opposite, that's cleansing and relaxing and vibe off of it, you know?
Absolutely. And I completely agree, because like you said, it's when you're used to doing something one way for so long, like, you know, really aggressive music, for example, and then when you can take a step back, take a break, then come back to set of tools and make something completely different, genre, completely different sounds, completely different approach. It's extremely fulfilling because it's like, wow, it's never ending paths to creativity and music. Yeah.
It's kind of like, like someone who loves rock music and loves Les Pauls. If they want a new guitar, they're gonna go get a new guitar, and it's probably gonna be another Les Paul, or maybe a Super Strat. But they're probably not gonna go look at the banjos. But then they end up at like a bluegrass music festival, and some badass bluegrass band starts throwing down, dude. And you know what I mean? Like bluegrass, like when it starts stomping. Yeah. Oh my God, that is amazing stuff. And then all of a sudden, that guy's looking at banjos. Like, God, that banjo player was ripping. I always thought that was like a goofy instrument.
Exactly.
What's this mandolin sound like? And that really gets you going down like rabbit holes.
Sometimes it's fun to and I think it takes time to like come to this realization for most people, most musicians. But if you just go get or like borrow an instrument that you've never really thought about, never really cared about, and just try and play it and incorporate it into your music and just see what happens. Like maybe you'll love it, maybe you'll hate it, but you'll create something different. That's for sure. I got a tambourine. And I'm like,
tambourines are rad.
Yeah, dude. I was like, I never give a fuck about tambourines until then. I was like, I'm just gonna buy one. Fuck it. And I started using it. I'm like, this is sick. So I started using it in certain like maybe pop or like a little bit more upbeat pop and rock songs. Just like putting a tambourine in the chorus, like just slightly in the mix. I'm like, this is awesome. It's
amazing, right?
It's like I just like grabbing, forcing yourself to just do something different that freaks you out a little bit. I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you say like putting tambourines, of course, the next thing I think of is like 16th note electronic hi-hats, like static hi-hats, like those kind of things in heavy music. Like if you're going down that like evil disco, you're going that Static X route. You know what I mean? Like it can really like add such a vibe to it. Yeah. Having like a heavy like halftime breakdown or something, and then having like a 16th note hi-hat going over the top of it is just like, ugh, yep. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, you like I always skipped over with all my Roland Romplers and stuff I had back in the day, and I had like that and like an Emu Extreme Lead 1, which I still have. I think they're just weird. Like the old Emu stuff is like no one's emulated it. No one's that I know of like put any sort of like a sound font thing together that actually has like all the filters and stuff properly. Like maybe it's got like samples of the ROM, but not the actual functionality of the synth. Yeah. But it's like, I would always skip over all the like brass, I'd skip over most of the woodwind stuff except for maybe a flute, because flutes are kind of cool, like, in certain contexts. But kind of the rolling joke around my place when I'm working with people is like, every time I say like, what does this track need? Someone's like, he's going to put a French horn in it.
I love French horns. Fuck yeah. I fucking love French horns.
You know what this track needs? It needs a fucking French horn, dude, just blasting.
They're extremely evil, in my opinion. Like if you do it a certain way, like it's so dark, it's so terrifying. It
just sounds like war coming. Like,
yeah.
But like orcs.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Last question before we wrap it up. What's your dream gig?
Honestly, my bucket list is checked.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I work with, my best friend who, was the person who inspired me to sing, to actually sing when I was young. I've been in, my favorite thing in the world is Berserk. And I got to do some voices. I got to be a little voice acty in those. I know the people who do the English dubbing and all that stuff, and they're friends, and I'm grateful for that. Devil May Cry 5 was one of my favorite things in the world, and
fuck yeah,
everybody who played that heard me in it, and whether they know it or not, and that was a big deal for me. And I just to be kind of sitting here just doing what I'm doing right now is kind of, my dream gig, I guess, is just to keep going, just to do this forever, and just to keep it going, man. Like I said before, you love this. If your worst day with it doesn't make you quit, then you're probably a lifer. You know. So that's it. That's the dream.
I love it, man. Yeah, I'm there. I'm right there with you. As long as just being able to keep doing it and survive, that's it. That's totally that's all I ask for. So that's great to hear that, man.
Good.
Well, Jamison, thank you so much for coming, and I'm glad we got to finally catch up. Anything you want to plug before we wrap it up? Where can people find you?
Oh my God, which one of the 5 things? I'm most active on Instagram, and I'm Jamison Boaz _epsilon0. I'm all over Spotify, epsilon0, Jamison Boaz artist, solo artist, Resodrone, Modern Weapons, and I got another one that's coming out that I haven't mentioned yet. But those are all out there on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music and everything. It's all out there. It's all out there, baby.
Hell yeah, man. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Cheers. Bye.